Hello, I'm Pamela Young, and this is Thrive 2030 from growthcurv. Today, I have with me Jan Hofstede, who's the Managing Director of Big Dutchman Asia. If you haven't heard of Big Dutchman Asia, it's a farm automation company that dates back to 1938. So welcome to Jan. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
Good to see you. I think we should probably start with a little bit of history of Big Dutchman and where that name came from before we move on to who you are and your job in the region. Now, I understand it's a German-owned business at the moment, but it started in the United States. Would you like to fill in the blanks?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me. Good morning.
Yeah, welcome.
All the way from Kuala Lumpur is where I'm based for the past 29 years. Big Dutchman is originally, despite the name, an American company. It started off in 1938 by two sons of Dutch immigrants to the Michigan, USA. And they were the first ones who invented automation in the poultry industry for the feeding of chickens. And because of their Dutch heritage, they named their company Big Dutchman. So the ownership has changed over the years a few times, and at the moment, well, actually since the 1980s, I think, it is in the hands of a German family in the northern part of Germany, and so we're a family-owned business. I'm Dutch, but one of the few, I would say, that are still called. So
yes.
Now, hope we're not. Yeah.
It's a pretty big enterprise. I understand you've got operations across 120 countries, which is like two-thirds of the world, with $1 billion euro turnover. And in Asia, you're across about most countries, but have offices in 8 countries with $180 million turnover. Is that about the right size?
Yeah, that's about correct. We do about 20% of the global turnover is in Asia, but over the years, of course, it is increasing quite rapidly in line with the population growth and with the economic development in Asia. Yeah.
Yes. Now, Jan, you arrived in Kuala Lumpur in 1992 to set up the Asian operation.
That's correct.
And I understand that started out as a very small operation in a home somewhere. Could you just describe what your mere beginnings, because it's a very interesting story.
Story. So no, I started off in 1992 together with 2 colleagues. We came out of Europe. We were doing some business out of Germany and out of that time the US into Asia, but more via distributors, doing not much. And we saw that Asia would be our future growth potential. So then the management decided that we should probably focus a little bit more on Asia. And we looked around and decided to set up an office in Malaysia, which is quite central in the region, has a good home market. People speak English here and has all the right infrastructure basically to perform this regional role. Yeah. So one suitcase, all 3 of us, we moved over. In 95, the other 2 gentlemen left, so I was the only one who was left standing in 95. And well, basically we started out of our home, so we had everybody had a bedroom, and we had one shared office, which was the living room. Yeah. The kitchen, 1 car, and then we grew the business from there. And
just
now
like Steve Jobs in his garage, hey?
But he was the owner, and I think he probably came out better than I do right now. No, but anyway, he's I mean, we started very small and
very small, mere beginnings at the house,
and we grew with the company. So yeah.
Yes. And so you would have seen a lot of changes in those 29 years. So fast tracking to 2020, I mean, by that time, you're, a huge business across the region. And let's talk briefly about the products so people understand what it is that you do. It's farm automation, building housing and feeding systems for chickens and pork. And so you're at the beginning of the food chain of the food production assembly line.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. So we are the world's largest producer of farm automation equipment from poultry and pigs. So poultry means for the production of poultry meat, including turkeys and ducks and chickens, of course, and then also for the production of eggs. So that's the poultry side of it, and then we also do the pig side of it. Even though in Southeast Asia there's quite a few, of course, because of religious reasons, the market is of course limited to only a few countries that they do pork.
Yeah. So one of the reasons I was really excited to have the opportunity to talk with you is because you're in the food sector, and you know, it's devastating, isn't it? Particularly in Asia. I mean, in Western nations, the guesstimate is that we eat out. About 50% of our meals come from restaurants and cafes, and the other 50% is cook at home. But in Asia, particularly in cities like Singapore, Hong Kong, Kuala Lumpur, Ho Chi Minh City, most people eat out most of the time because it's available, it's good quality, it's cheap. So therefore, the impact of shutting down is much more significant, I think, in some of your cities than in some of the Western cities. Would you think that's a fair call?
Yeah, of course. When this whole COVID-19 pandemic started, initially it started, of course, in Europe, you know, in Italy and so on. So, and we were in Asia. We thought, okay, flu. That's cold climate, you know. So it won't happen here. Yes. So maybe in China or maybe in Japan or something where it's colder. But we won't be affected here in Asia because of flu. So everything basically went on as normal until, of course, it came here, and it's still very much around here. And it's actually, I would say, after 1.5 years, it's probably getting worse, the situation here, compared to when it all started. It is the food sector is heavily affected, mainly on the food service part. So as you rightfully say, people eat a lot outside on the streets and so on, and that's all shut down. So you have more now people have to cook at home. Quite often, consumers in big cities, they don't even have the facilities to cook at home. So because they rely very much on
street food.
On eating on the street. So what they do, they still take out food, so that's still happening. But overall, of course, the business is the food service sector has been very heavily affected by this. Plus, I mean, tourism, of course, which is food services, the airline industry, and it's a massive impact. Even though probably other industries are probably more impacted than what we are, I would say.
Yes, well, as you said, you are an essential. You were recognised as an essential service, being part of the food chain. So you were allowed to keep a part of your business open, I think. Yeah,
well, when this whole when the first wave hit here in Malaysia, where we do all our logistics for the region, they shut us down. Well, basically shut everybody down. Yes. And everybody had to stay home. You were not even allowed on the street. Patrols, police patrols everywhere. Night curfew. So that lasted for a couple of days, or I would say, probably 2 weeks. And then we were declared as what we call essential services, because people have to eat. People rely on eating chickens very much here in this Muslim nation. So people eat chicken and eggs, and when they don't have their regular supplies, then of course, then you have a bigger problem. So we were classified as being essential services. So from that stage on, we were allowed to open, and which is kind of lucky. Even though initially with a skeleton staff, and gradually, I think now we're open in up to 60% of our total capacity we are allowed to operate.
Okay, so the impact on the downstream of the value chain for you, though, is the challenge is getting suppliers to be able to produce your housing and feeding systems. Yeah,
at the moment it's in this new lockdown period that started about 3-4 weeks ago. We went again in the lockdown, as you said. As I said. Things are not getting better. It's going away, but at the moment it's pretty bad. It's spreading quite rapidly, despite all the efforts that being done by vaccinating people. So we were again classified as essential services, but quite a lot of our suppliers who supply us with all the raw material, all the steel, all the plastic parts, they are not allowed to operate. So at the moment, we and also our customers are quite heavily impacted by this COVID situation right now.
Yes, because presumably your customers would be the producers and processing plants, and they would be affected obviously because of the closure of restaurants, although I suppose some of the supermarkets would pick up the slack there because they would have more demand for fresh and frozen chickens, and eggs would continue. However, if their business is impacted, they might not have the same amount of time or same amount of money to produce, to purchase your products, and or they may slow down their purchase of the automation system.
Well, if you look at chicken and eggs, that is of course the cheapest animal protein that is available, right? So what you see is because we have a regional office here, so from here we ship everything from Japan to New Zealand, where you are, and everything in between. So where you see in certain markets, you see, of course, every country is impacted by this COVID. So you see that certain markets replace more expensive animal proteins, let's say like beef or like seafood, with the cheaper ones like chickens or eggs. So in that respect is actually for us quite good. In the more developing markets or the less developed markets, you see that people substitute the chicken with vegetables because they simply cannot afford it. It's still considered a luxury item.
I guess.
So
So what would you say are the most significant impacts on your business? I mean, if you're operating at 60%, then you've got 40% of your staff that you either have on gardening leave or had to make
No. We need the people to fill up our containers here. We ship about 100 to 150 40-foot containers a week out of our facility here. So we need hands to fill up these containers. We have incoming goods, we have outgoing goods. So those people are here. The people who are filling the orders, who do the service, who are sitting basically in the office, the admin, and so on. These people can work from home. So Malaysia is in that respect and I must say, especially Kuala Lumpur, the infrastructure is quite good here on the telecom, on the doing work from home. Even though, of course, per individual families, what you quite often see in Asia, there are 3 generations living in one house. Grandma and granddad and so on. So it depends very much on the individual situation. So for some families, probably a little bit easier than other families who also have the kids around because schools are closed and so on. So it's not easy, but it's workable.
Yes. Now I'm just going to join you there in Kuala Lumpur. This is your beautiful central location, and just to the west of the city, isn't it? Can you just describe what happens here? This is your main.
Well, this is we moved over the years. We moved a few times. This is our latest move. We moved in there about 4 years ago. We built it ourselves. It's a 19. No, I shouldn't say. It's 19-acre block of land. And we have 25,000 square meter warehouse in there, whereby we do all our logistics, plus our regional office to the left. So we're quite proud of it because it's we earned from the architectural institution in Malaysia. We in 2018 we got the gold or the #1 prize for the nicest or the best industrial office in Malaysia. So and we developed and we designed it, of course, together with the architect ourselves. So we're quite proud of it. And it's a very nice. One day you'll when everything is over, of course, you are more than welcome to come here. But we'll show you around. The working atmosphere is actually quite nice. It's quite.
It looks like you have a very large solar system on that roof. You're quite self-sustained.
Yeah, actually, I wish it would have been a little bit larger, but we are from the authorities restricted on the percentage of solar or electricity we can produce ourselves. So we've of course done it to the max, but and we expect as regulations will change, we'll probably fill the whole roof up with solar panels.
Why would they restrict your use of solar? I would have thought that they would be encouraging you to maximize.
Electrical companies in Malaysia also money.
Okay.
So there's only so many percent of your peak use you can utilize for your own yourself.
Yes. Do you have an industry association for chicken and pig farmers that you belong to? Do you sit around with all the people in your value chain and talk about how to, manage this problem and going forward?
No, not really. Of course, we have the difference. I mean, we are of course we are a very German company, so you have what they call the Malaysia German Business Council, so whereby all foreign companies kind of group together.
Yeah.
And share ideas, but in our industry we have you have the producers, the chicken producers association, which of course we are a member of, but not really active because we're not really producers, we're only supporting the industry. So no, we just do our own thing.
What is the conversation when you're together with the German and Malaysia Business Council? What are the conversations about the difference between what's happening in Germany or Europe versus Asia?
Wow, quite often it's just to seek clarity on all the ongoing changes in regulations, basically on the daily basis. Yeah. Locking up, opening up again, and locking down again, and of course. We give our opinion on the way we think we should move, which is, it is of course also for the government. It's quite a difficult situation. I mean, if you have to deal with a lot in Malaysia, a lot of foreign labor, of which quite a high percentage is also illegal, who don't go to vaccination centers, and of course it's extremely difficult to keep this all under control. Yeah. But we follow strict SOPs, so that's been given to us by the authorities, and we just follow. And so far, I mean, of course, we have cases in the office, but so far we're okay. We're okay with it.
Yeah. Just on that point about the sort of movement of labour as well as the movement of goods, how is that impacting your industry and Malaysia more broadly? Because of the closed borders.
Well, we as a company, we don't manufacture. We outsource manufacturing, basically the same as the car industry does. We buy the raw material. We own the tools, and we hand it over to the producer who can produce it for the best price, meeting our quality standards. Okay. That's basically our modus operandi. And then we bring those parts back into the warehouse, put it all together in a kit set, and ship them out to the farms to be set up. Right. So we don't really have to deal with foreign labor. However, our suppliers do. So and also our customers do, because working on a farm in a climate like here, where there's of course there's heat, there's flies. I mean, of course, when you use our systems less, of course, but it's not. I mean, laborers prefer to work in an air-conditioned factory rather than probably working on the farm. So our customers are having problems getting labor to do those farms, and that's actually they're moving towards automation, and that's what we do. What you see also a lot of the in certain countries in the region, labor on these farms are not properly registered, so they're coming from overseas, and by having this kind of labor, it's very difficult to control the COVID. So of course you cannot bring them to vaccination centers and so on. So
yes, difficult. What is the COVID situation? What are the numbers in Malaysia this week, for example?
Oh, despite all the lockdown, it's only increasing. We at the moment, yesterday, I think we had 13,000 cases. Earlier in the week, we had 11,000. So it's only increasing. But it's, I mean, they're vaccinating a lot. So I think they're vaccinating up to 400,000 people 400,000 shots a day here now. So we have 32 million people. So it's getting there, but it takes a couple of more months, to get everybody vaccinated.
Yes. Is the general view that once vaccinated you'll be safe, or are people worried about more?
We are worried about what the new Delta variant.
Yes.
Which seems to be highly contagious, and not all vaccines seem to be
able to cope with it.
Able to cope with it. So of course Malaysia, we're quite late in ordering the vaccination. So whatever we can get our hands on, they buy, and not all vaccines are able to cope with it. So, but anyway.
I think in Australia and New Zealand we've got that same situation where we ordered a bit late, so we're lucky to get what we can get our hands on. But around the world, do you think that the vaccine rate is going to increase? Do you think that we're going to get protected, by having all countries vaccinated? Is there a belief that that's going to occur?
I think in the Western world, yes. In the Western world, yes, and you see that now already in Europe and in the US, they're already opening up. In the developing world or the underdeveloped world, it will be very tough. I think, of course, it's a financial thing. It's a lot of money. It's something you have to do probably every year. It needs a lot of logistics, in order to get to all these people in remote areas.
Yeah.
And if you're talking about population of like 270 million people in Indonesia, or more than 100 million people in the Philippines, and 160 million in Bangladesh, I think it's gonna be more like dengue fever, I guess, or malaria. It's gonna be there all the time. It's more endemic rather than a pandemic.
Yes.
And hopefully at some stage you're gonna get enough herd immunity to eliminate the disease completely. But I think we're in here for the long haul. I don't think it's like, by the end of the year everybody's vaccinated and then we move on. I don't think. Not in Asia, not in Southeast Asia. No way.
I think you're right. The numbers are too big, and apart from not having the finances, they don't have the infrastructure, the discipline, the systems to orchestrate, such a very big project that needs to be run right through the nation. And in countries like India, I just think that it's the size of it and the number of people and the development of it. It's going to be a very big challenge. But in the meantime, I suppose the next question is about how does an industry protect itself for the future? What have we learned in the last 18 months about, the challenges of these constant lockdowns and how they're going to interrupt the business? And if we're going to have to continue facing pandemics, then we have to continue with social distancing and things like that, which means that I have been picking up from these conversations that there's a massive increase in adoption of new technologies. So I'm just wondering what technologies you use in your industry now, and what you would be looking to use in the future that might protect you by more automation, less hands-on staff, and also smooth the peaks and troughs as we go through more pandemics or whatever else is going to come at us over the next decade.
Yeah, well, before the COVID, we already had different types of diseases that have affected our industry. You're talking about the bird flu. You're talking about African swine fever, which is still raging havoc here in Asia and in the rest of the world. So our industry has already thought about, okay, how do we control, or how can we keep our the way of operating safe, or continue going, having those things around. So automation is definitely the way forward. So doing away with factors that can transmit the disease. So a lot of it is still the human factor. It's still the people that are going from outside, going into the farms, having a farm that is not properly designed from a biosecurity perspective. So more and more automation, less human interaction. So with this COVID, this only basically there's only strengthened this whole idea. So you don't want to have, you want to take the human variable out. Of course, difficult to do when you are in a processing plant and you process chickens, whereby you have to manually cut them up, and you have hundreds of people standing in a line. Of course, which is a portion you probably cannot automate. That's where vaccination comes in. But in our industry, less people, more automation, and more control over the entire process. And also then that links back to the ever increasing need for tracing, traceability of the product. So if somebody, let's say, eats a McNugget in a restaurant and he gets sick from it, you want to be able to trace it back to the source, to the McDonald's outlet, to the processing plant, to the farm, and so on. So we have systems who can handle all that. Yeah.
Yes. So do you offer your customers technology systems to go with this automation? It obviously comes with a system piece.
Of course, I mean it comes with a price, and secondly, it comes with a certain level of skill. I mean, giving somebody a tool and you don't educate them how to use the tool, then of course it doesn't bring you much. So it needs to have a certain quality of staff in order to work with these tools, and that's a challenge. That's a challenge, because if you have IT literate people, they rather work in some other facilities rather than go and work on the farm, because the farm people don't really relate IT with farms, even though it's very much the future. But so we as an industry have to become more attractive to get those people in.
Yeah, I guess that's the challenge, isn't it? If we continue to have pandemics and continue to have lockdowns, it's going to put pressure on you and your sector to find ways to overcome that challenge, which means
also opportunities, I would say. Definitely opportunities.
Definitely. Because what it'll do is it'll put you in the position, and the farmers in the position of having to find a technology solution at the right price. So that, it doesn't necessarily require highly skilled labor, might require semi-skilled technical people, so that you can actually keep moving on. So sounds like an opportunity and a challenge for the sector to move your technology further forward. Do you see any other opportunities that you could take on board over the next 2 to 3 years to smooth out the peaks and troughs, particularly in the supply side? Do you rely on your suppliers from outside the nation?
We are what we've learned the last 1.5 years, I would say, and with all those lockdowns everywhere, that you cannot rely only on one source. I mean, for example, when the whole COVID started and everybody in the world was relying on their PPE, all their masks and their gloves and everything from China.
Yeah.
And China said, "Oh, wait a minute, we don't have enough," and then that impacted the rest of the world really.
Yeah.
Then
the bottleneck.
The world thought, "Oh, wait a minute, we have to diversify. We cannot rely only on one source. We cannot only rely on having manufacturing out of China, and then something happens there." That we are caught. So the same situation here for us. We are essential industry, so we cannot rely. I mean, and we are in fact quite lucky, because we have facilities in Europe, we have facilities in the US, as well as in Asia. So we can move our production around a little bit, but even within Asia in the future, we will probably have to diversify even further. We have to look more for what they call local for local, getting more prepared in case there's border shutdowns, or we cannot move our service people around, around the region. And that is I think that is something we've learned, and it's something we have to the challenge you have to face.
Yes. So let's just look at the regional landscape. You've got operations in New Zealand and Australia, Singapore, Japan, Thailand, Vietnam. Where else? China. These are your offices.
We have an operation out of China.
I'm just wondering what the difference
India,
is.
of course.
Yeah.
Thailand, Indonesia, Philippines, Myanmar, even another challenge right now. Australia, Japan. So for us, service is very important because we're dealing with live products. So if we cannot get our service engineers to a farm that has a problem, every minute counts. So luckily we have our engineers, our service engineers in all these countries, and in the countries where we don't have our own offices, we have agents that we support. So it's important not only to get the product, but also in order to service it. So we're quite well set up, I must say. We're quite well set up with our spare parts and our service in the different countries.
Yeah. When you get together in your virtual top team meeting with the heads of each of those nations, what's the flavor? What's the tone? How does it vary between the countries? Because
very much depends very much on the country. Depends very much on the country. If you, I mean, there's challenges. Of course, number one is, of course, you look at our staff. I mean, what is the situation? How is our staff coping? How can we provide them a safe working environment? I mean, do they have the facilities to work from home? If they have to come into the office, do they have to make use of public transport, which is another risk basically that is being added to it. So that's where we first look at our people. How can we keep on moving our service? How can we maintain our operation? Secondly is, of course, our customers. How can we get to our customers who require service? So that's been, as I said, been taken care of. And then countries that are more affected. For example, right now in Indonesia, we have different discussions compared to let's say our office in Australia, which is, I mean, of course you are affected, but not to the extent as let's say what Indonesia have, you know. So
yeah. Do you notice any shifts in culture? I mean, how people are feeling about themselves or the business or the team or the leadership? Are you sort of noticing any changes?
I would say from a working perspective, people are more, the job security, I would say. That is at the moment something that counts.
Yes.
So you want to, in the past, loyalty, especially in Asia, where it's always growing and there's always new opportunities for staff with the right capabilities. You always see movements, even though our company not so much, because I think we pay them well and we look after them. But that has changed quite a bit now. People, you don't see a lot of movement of staff. People are happy to have their job, and then job security at the moment is quite important.
Yeah, I would think so, because it's the number one thing, isn't it? To keep your job so that you can get the money that you need to buy the food and pay the bills while you're on lockdown, and that's quite central. There doesn't seem to be a lot of movement of people in jobs, and also because most countries are locked down, they don't have the tourist traffic, the backpackers, you know, the labor and the unskilled labor and the skilled labor. So there seems to be quite a challenge of looking for talent and finding talent in some of the countries that I'm talking with. Are you noticing any skill shortages at the more senior level, more skilled level?
On skilled level, no. And more on unskilled level. From us, in order to set up a farm or to install our equipment, we need quite a lot of labor, hands. Basically, we need hands to install it, and with a proper supervision, with the semi-skilled labor can basically do it, can set it up. That is right now a challenge. I was just talking to my colleague in Australia actually the other day, and Australia relies a lot on backpacker workers for semi-skilled work. So if we sell one of our farm systems to a customer in Australia, we send our technicians over, and then they use backpackers to install it. But there's no backpackers right now.
That's right. Yeah.
And of course, there's a massive shortage of labor in Australia because I mean, if you want to earn some money, of course, you go to the mines or whatever. So that's not a challenge that some of our customers have. They have it, they have the goods, but they're unable to install it. So.
That's right. I mean, I still have property in Sydney, even though I'm currently in Auckland, but trying to get tradies to come and do odd jobs or fix things is really challenging. They say, yes, we'll come in 2 or 3 weeks. We're really busy right now. 2 or 3 weeks turns up and they don't turn up. So you chase them again and it's another 2 or 3 weeks and then they still don't turn up. So you try the next person. And on some occasions you can look for 3 or 4, different people before you find one who happens to have a gap and will happen to turn up, because they rely on backpackers as their low-wage staff, and they're having to do the work themselves, so they're really busy. Their prices have all hiked up, and it's impossible both in Australia and New Zealand. So I'm sure that's happening in many parts of the world. Where
of course, in Asia, or in, let's say, in Thailand or in Malaysia.
Yes.
Where they heavily rely on foreign labor, and of course they don't bring foreign labor in. So all working permits that are being expired, people are being asked to go back to their country, to Bangladesh, to Nepal, or to Myanmar, and so on, and they don't bring new labor in. So they also have challenges in these countries. So it's not easy.
So looking forward, what do you see? Do you see fog? Do you see a haze, and or do you see your future?
If you would have asked me 1.5 years ago, how long is this going to last, and are you 1.5 years later, are we still on the downtrend rather than an uptrend? I would say it'll be over, and we'll move on. But that is actually the biggest challenge. Nobody knows how long this is going to take. In Asia, I must say, in Europe. Yes, they're or in the Western world, Australia and in the US, they're back on the path of recovery. In Asia, there's still a very, very big unknown. Is there going to be another Delta or another variant that can delay this whole recovery process? I think that is the biggest unknown. How long is it going to last until things hopefully get at some stage normal?
Yes. So how would you plan forward? What kind of strategy techniques will you use to sort of protect your business and to motivate your staff? Because it's about providing vision, isn't it? Strategies provide vision about where we're going, what we're going to do, how we're going to do it, and it gives everybody a sense of what their contribution to the result is. If we don't have that clarity, it's going to make it harder to motivate people to feel the security, the job security that you were talking about. But also, people look for both intrinsic and extrinsic rewards, and of course the extrinsic rewards are the financial security you're talking about. The intrinsic is a sense of value that I'm contributing, I'm learning, I'm developing, I'm getting promoted, I'm getting recognition, those sort of less tangible things. It's going to be a challenge, I think, for leaders and managers going forward, because if you think that your people are only sticking with you because they want the financial security, because it's not a good job market, and if they can't see the vision ahead of them, there's going to be a bit of turmoil going on, because the usual markers won't be there for them or for you. So do you have thoughts about how you might paint the picture and keep that?
Well, as I said earlier, we're in that sense, we're rather lucky to be in an industry that's still moving forward. Mm-hmm. It's not moving forward in the pace that we used to in the last 20 years, of course. Yeah. With 10-15% growth year on year. That has come to a bit of a halt. Yeah. I wouldn't say it's going down, but it has come to a bit of a halt. Yeah. There's still possibilities. There's still population growth. People still have to eat. So for us, we are a bit more cautious in the way to move forward, because as I said, you can't really plan, because you don't know how long it's going to take. If you know it's going to take another half year or a year, then you can plan ahead. But it might easily take another 2 to 3 years. So yeah, we just hang in there, and but there will be opportunities. People still have to eat. And chicken and eggs are still and pork is still probably chicken and eggs is still the cheapest source of protein, and
they're on my weekly shopping list.
And it's still the population is still growing. It's still by a couple of tens of millions every year in Asia. So
yeah, you're lucky. Do you have do you what sort of direction do you get from head office in Germany? What are they thinking about?
Not really. I mean, no. We are a family-owned company, so we're in here for the long run. So it's not like quarterly. Of course, I mean, we look at quarterly numbers, but it's not. It's not really impacting our long-term vision.
Yes.
So they say, well, you guys are here with my colleagues here in Asia. You're closer to the fire, so we of course inform them what we think is the best to move forward, and. I mean, long term, this is still the future here. It's still the future. So, and our owners see that as well. So they're, just it's a bit of a, somebody press the pause button, and then we move on again.
Yeah, that's an interesting way of putting it. Pressing the pause button. That's fantastic. Look, it's been really interesting talking with you, and it's good to hear that you have a positive outlook on the future despite the fog. It's clear that we don't know when it's going to end, and I think most people at the start thought it was going to be like bird flu, maybe last 4, 5, 6 months, and as you say, expected it to pass. The fact that it's gone on is wearying, and even in Australia, where the numbers are quite small, the in and out of lockdown is really challenging, and they are getting wary from that. Which is nothing like the conditions of countries that have got tens of thousands of cases. But I think it is exhausting people, and you sort of wonder what impact it's going to have on the next generation because of the children, and their isolation from mates at schools and things like that. So it's going to be interesting, isn't it, to watch, as how long it takes and what the social impact is on people as we come out of this. But I really thank you for sharing your thoughts with us today, Jan. It's been really great. Very interesting learning a little bit about the chicken, egg and pork industry and farm automation, but most of all, it's really, really terrific to hear what's going on in Malaysia. So thanks very much for joining us today. But before I go, I've got this one really big question I'd like to put to you, which is, if you happen to be chief executive of the world for a moment, what would be your top priority? What would you focus on as the things that you'd need to attend to first?
Yeah, that's a very tough question. So I hope I'm never in that position to be CEO of the world. There's a religious for, I guess. Anyway, so
have a go.
I mean, you see what you see now. The world is becoming more turbulent now because of things that are happening around us. More polarization. You see, of course, the China is trying to gain, the leadership of the world. US or the Western world is pushing back.
Yeah.
On the technology front, I think they've already won, China. So that's probably the future as well, technology. So it's going to be interesting times, and I hope we can. It's going to be all very, very peacefully moving forward, and we all look at at a joint strategy. I don't think at the moment it's. I don't think the world is necessarily a safer place than what it was probably 20 years ago. Yeah.
So you said
sorry?
Your focus would be to corral the team around to see if you could, deal with the polarization, bring the groups together.
I would say so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
facilitate the conversation.
Everybody wants the world or the people in the world to move forward, right? So it doesn't necessarily have to be to the expense of the other.
Yeah.
So I think if there's a bit more mutual understanding, I think that'll be good.
That'd be a good place to start, for sure. Thank you. Well, Jan, thank you so much. Jan Hofstede, Managing Director, Big Dutchman of Asia. Thanks so much. Hopefully we'll talk to you again in the future. Bye for now.
Thanks, man.